Hello and welcome to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. Now remember, we love taking your questions, so write into politicswarroom@gmail.com or send a tweet to @Politicon for next week's show. We'll get to as many as we can, but don't forget to tell us where you're from. And other exciting news, this is exciting. The documentary Carville, Winning is Everything Stupid, is now streaming on Max. Get updates and some great behind-the-scenes content by following James on Twitter @JamesCarville and on his new TikTok @RealJamesCarville. I wonder, I have to ask James if he thinks that Donald Trump brought back TikTok in order to make sure we could see his documentary. You can also get text updates about what's next on Politicon and Politics War Room by signing up at Politicon.com. Tell your friends about us. Remind them to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And please check out the links to our sponsors, Quince, 3-Day Blinds, and Beam in our show notes. We thank you for supporting these sponsors. It really helps make this podcast happen. James, I wish I could say something good about this week. Maybe in the course of this show, we'll think of something. But the Trump inaugural and subsequent actions were dark, depressing, demoralizing, and not surprising. Trump dominates Washington. I've been in this town for, 55 years? I stopped counting. And he dominates today like no other president I've seen. And he dominates with a reckless disregard for truth and, more importantly, for the rule of law. You know, the pitch ahead of his speech was, he's going to be more unifying. This will be different than it was in 2017. What's really scary is that this may be what Trump considers unifying, or the high ground. 8 years ago, President George W. Bush said the Carnage speech was some, quote, crazy shit. Just looking at Bush on television on that podium, it looked like he was thinking the same thing. Trump was graceless, not even a token bow to his predecessor. There are things that were just so beyond any pale, James. He said no other country has birthright citizenship. Well, that's just a lie. Dozens do, including our neighbors, Canada and Mexico. He said the Biden administration and FEMA stiffed rural North Carolina after the hurricane. Ask any politicians down in North Carolina. They'll tell you that wasn't true. You know, the old refrain, Pelosi was responsible for January 6th. Let me just make two other points quickly. The cold weather forced inside a lot of people who otherwise would have been more prominently displayed out on the front of the Capitol. Some Republican office holders and spouses were relegated to the back of the room. But right up there, sitting in the best seats in the House, were Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg and his spouse, Jeff Bezos and his fiancée. The billionaire boys were there, not the MAGA warriors. And one final. Trump's major pitch is he will rescue an America in decline. It's a country that really does have problems, income inequality, unaffordable housing. But the IMF just reported the U.S. economy is the strongest in the world today. And prominent banker Jamie Dimon goes further and says the American economy is the greatest economy in our lifetime. We also have some great universities, innovative entrepreneurs, and great citizen involvement at the local level. The message to the 47th president ought to be, James, don't screw it up. He will.
Well, I guess, we sit here and you look at the crypto giant grift. It's such a giant grift. Now the other crypto people are mad because it's such a grift he's infringing on their territory. You look at the pardons of the January 6th violent criminals who assaulted police officers. They've all been pardoned. Just walk away. All right? You look at his executive order suspending every person that has anything to do with DEI. Okay? You look at all of his stuff that is starting, deportations, God knows what not. The total confusion over TikTok, which he knows nothing. And what is the response? Okay, you gave us a very nice list of things that he did. I could name more. And the Democrats or the press doesn't have a way to deal with this, because usually people would put something out and it would be the story of the day, and then you could follow that and they'd defend the story, and people would attack it, and you'd go ahead. Now he has 10 things out there. Of all of the things that you mentioned, which should the Democrats focus on? What they will end up doing is what they always do. They will focus on all 10. And they will do no good. To me, the biggest one was the Secretary of Treasury, a billionaire, telling the Senate committee that we can't have the minimum wage raise. Minimum wages last raised in 2009. I'd love to know the salaries of the salaries of high-income people since 2009, people over $1 million, how their wealth is growing, what happened to people who lower part of hourly wages growing. Of course, we would know the answer to that without a doubt. And the hardest thing to do going forward, and I don't have a lot of confidence that we can do that we can just pick some things to the exclusion of 20 other things. Because people will say, well, how could you not say something about that? Well, it's not that I don't think it's a big issue. I don't think, but if I say something about that, and I say something about this, and I say something about this and that, and I say something about that and this, I've lost my ability to communicate. And this is an unprecedented way that they're going about this. And Steve Bannon, I think the guy was right. He said, we're just going to flood the zone with shit. And we're now flooded with shit. And we just don't have a response. We just don't.
Well, James, you offered a response. You had a piece in which you talked about, I think, 5 issues: raising the minimum wage, expanding affordable health care, codifying Roe. Focus on those 5 issues. There are other things. Pulling out of the World Health Organization is a terrible idea. That's like underlining every line in a book. You can't do it. I think the focus that you talked about, maybe you want to change 1 or 2, but that's what Democrats ought to do. They're not going to win. They ought to understand that. Their role is to oppose. And Trump is going to do outrageous things every goddamn day. And I think that Treasury Secretary, you can't raise the minimum wage, which is $7.25, but you can extend a massive tax cut for billionaires like Scott Bessent and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk.
So I saw something interesting this morning. I was looking at Morning Joe, and they had the Pod Save America guys on there, but Lovett and John Favreau and them, all right? They actually said some things that I thought people should listen to. The first thing is, when somebody runs for Democratic nomination in 2028, the first thing that I want to hear out of their mouth is, I'm taking our message everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. I mean Joe Rogan, I mean Fox News, I mean Sunday morning shows, I mean everything. I'm proud of what we have to offer. I'm going to go out and promote it, and I'm going to go out and defend it, and I'm going to go out and attack them, and I'm going to do it all the time. Secondly, all of our events are going to be fun. There's going to be great music. There's going to be great, comedians that are going to tell jokes before I come up. It's going to be an entirely different thing. We're dour, okay? It's always somebody's in a pissy mood or somebody's this. And we're just not connecting. We're not connecting at all. And then we strategically don't go on places that accentuate certain parts of popular culture, particularly male popular culture. And the result is just the same fucking thing. It's just this cultural NPR combined with which people detest, combined with an ability to try to drink water out of I hate the metaphor, but more like out of a waterfall. Okay, trying to get a sip of water out of Niagara Falls. And it's just going to require some discipline, and it's going to require a change of attitude. It just really is. And I think it's right. I think that the whole, we didn't lose the election because of it, but we lost the election because we are playing the Super Bowl. The game is coming up. Okay, we played our Super Bowl with our ninth best quarterback. Understand that. And with our ninth best quarterback, with no time to prepare a campaign, without even addressing the central issue that the American people were concerned about, we came within a point and a half. So don't kid yourself. We're not starting near at zero, but in order to get off the ground, you have to have a strategy, and everything is not a strategy. And not talking to people or just regurgitating sound bites is not a strategy either.
Well, I agree with much of that, except, I mean, don't talk about 2028, for God's sakes. There's so much that's going to happen.
I'm just saying
that'll take it. No, I'm not addressing you. I'm addressing what you said. They said. I think what you need to do are three things, and I don't think they're hard, two of which you just mentioned. I think one of which is that you need to reach out to different media, different outposts, different audiences. That, you know, Pete Buttigieg has done that, a few others. Most Democrats don't do that. I think, secondly, picking up on what we talked about earlier, you need to focus on certain issues. And I think, and it has to be selective. And, you know, by those issues may be different by 2027, but they aren't now. And thirdly, however, the Democrats, this is mainly outside of elected office. There has to be a stronger, for lack of a better term, resistance. Trump 2.0 is far more prepared, lethal, and dangerous than Trump 1.0. And Democrats just don't have the luxury and donors of being down, despondent. To paraphrase Nancy Pelosi's daughter in another matter, these people, these politicians and donors, put on your big person pants and fight, because there's going to be a hell of a lot of things to fight. That's different than having a 24-point agenda.
It is. And I'm going to, by the end of this month, I'm going to have a pretty good idea, because we have an American Bridge Conference in South Florida coming up. And there'll be the donor element of the Democratic Party will be very well represented. I have no idea, and I'm really kind of curious to see what their mood is. But what I'm saying is, anybody that promotes the message of this party or what's going on has got to do so aggressively, creatively, and it's got to not swing at every pitch. That's all. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying
I think you're right.
It takes plate discipline.
You know, a couple points. I really want to get to the pardons, because that's so important, by both presidents. But one, the bishop at the National Cathedral yesterday at the National Prayer Breakfast called on the leaders of the country, including the president, to have mercy on those who are scared, migrants, LGBTQ people. Tim Russert used to always tease me about the Episcopalians, my people. I got a note from an old friend, Peggy Lewis, this morning, who said, Tim Russert was happy yesterday with your people. The woman said exactly what she should have said. It wasn't insulting. Trump in his fury was outraged. Now, we know, James, there are millions of people who are scared. It doesn't take, much to find that out. So what's he upset about? Is it wrong to say you're going to have mercy on people who are scared? Unless, you're a thug. He certainly had mercy on the January 6 people. So I say 3 cheers for my Episcopalian bishop.
Well, okay, think of Trump and think of the bishop, okay? I'm not, of course, what she said is totally correct. It's theologically as solid as anything you can do. Here is a woman clergyman, and Trump's got to sit there. And she basically is lecturing him. And he would have exactly...
He's in her house.
You know what? He doesn't go to... in his people's mind, they see that, and they said, look at that, overeducated, thinks she's some kind of a priest or something like that, election the president of the United States. I agree with what she said totally. I'm glad she said it. But it's sort of part of the culture war, too. And she seemed like an eminently well-educated, fine clergy person, but she's probably not the best messenger in the world.
Well, no, she played her role. That's a different role. I think it would be a mistake for Hakeem Jeffries to focus primarily on LGBTQ rights, no question.
But that's why they didn't like her, because of her gender and her position in everything about her. Okay?
Exactly. I'm surprised he even went. He just went for show because he really doesn't believe in going to church. James, we have to talk about the pardons. The pardons and commutations of the January 6th insurrectionists, it says everything about Trump's view of the rule of law. It only exists when it helps him. I literally mean that. He doesn't believe in the rule of law unless it advantages him. These were violent insurrectionists, at least a number of them were, who tried to stage a coup. They wanted to overturn a fair election. It was violent. They stormed the Capitol. 5 police officers died as a result of this. There were hundreds of injuries. They wanted to kill Vice President Pence and Speaker Pelosi. This isn't some kind of liberal narrative. A very conservative judge, Royce Lambus, sentenced him and said it was one of the worst acts he had seen in this country. And the violence-loving Proud Boys and Oath Keepers who got a free pass from Trump this week, they're going to feel emboldened now, James. And I think we want to have our friends Kathleen Belew, or what's the name of that terrific woman who writes about white nationalist Christians, Catherine Stewart. We ought to talk to them about that, because I have no doubt the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and all the others were just giving a new lease on life by Donald Trump this week.
Of course, everything you say is true. And, of course, we had a slew of pardons. President Biden pardoned a bunch of people. Of course, all this mostly a result of Trump. But I'd like to know how many presidential pardons have been issued prior to, January the 1st of this year, and how many have been issued after January 1st this year. I mean, we've had the pardon power was something that people didn't think about that much. All right, there was some controversial pardons, people could, but there were few, they were far between. And at some level, they were defensible on some grounds, okay? But the times
dope smokers or whatever have you.
Yeah, the times that it came up were now we've like completely complete the presidency and the pardon power, but not what it used to be. It's now just bring them in here, sign them, and shove them out. And I don't think this is a positive trend, but I don't know if that it's not going to continue.
Oh, James, it's going to continue for a long time. I think the Biden pardons of Mark Milley, Liz Cheney, Tony Fauci, the January 6th committee, it made me uncomfortable. And I actually hope a couple of them reject the pardon, which you can do. But Trump and his band made clear they want revenge. They're going after Mark Milley, Liz Cheney, and Tony Fauci, though there is no case whatsoever. So at least I understand the logic of that. Right-wingers like Jim Banks, the new senator from Indiana, said Liz Cheney ought to be held accountable. For what? For what should Liz Cheney be held accountable for? It's nonsense. I must say, I think that Trump's pardon of his family is a different matter and totally indefensible. On this show, we both kind of uncomfortably agree the Hunter Biden pardon was understandable because Trump might use it. If Hunter Biden goes to prison, Trump could say, hey, I'm going to send him to X, Y, or Z, depending on what Biden says or does. That's what Trump does. But to pardon his brother, his sister, his brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and others, who it's a preemptive pardon, they haven't been even charged with anything. Is it as bad as Trump's sleazy pardon of Roger Stone and Paul Manafort and Michael Flynn, all of whom have been convicted or something? Probably not. But I really think I'm really upset that Biden did that.
Well, this is the kind of truth of where we are. In all of it, we know Biden. Actually, we know you and I know him personally. Again, I think it's fair to say that we're a long time at some level admirers of Joe Biden. And what he's done to himself is no one wants to hear from this guy anymore. Okay? Just go to your condo in Rehoboth and stay there. And that's not because we're bad people or we mean people. It was all his doing. All his doing. This entire thing. in this kind of petty back and forth, I would have beat Trump. And no one fucking believes that at all. And then fighting with Joe Biden and Alexander Pelosi. I mean, just look, guy, you had a noble career. Your last act was terrible. Just get out of the way. The party's moving on. I mean, they're really moving on. And it's very sad but that's just where we are. And he created this himself. He has nobody to blame but himself. Nobody.
Every interview he gave to a friendly interviewer was a mistake. He just dug himself deeper in a hole. He ought to go away, raise money for a library at either Delaware or Penn. But Joe Biden really has no role to play in the national dialogue now, and that is sad.
It is fair.
But it is what it is.
But if he tries to play a role, it'll be a negative role.
It will be.
I mean, the party is just like, hey, man, let's get out of the way. I mean, it's one. I've said it and continue to believe it's one of the most tragic stories in American politics of my lifetime. It can't be tragic unless I don't say I guess it's the victim of it or whatever. The central character is actually a good guy who did it to himself. That's what's so unbelievably stunning about this.
Yeah. James, history may be a little bit kinder to him. You know what? Takes a hell of a long time. You and I and Joe Biden ain't going to be around to see that. So.
Upgrade your wardrobe with Quince. It's one of those things when you see what they have and the price they have it at, and you look in your closet and you say, I wonder how much goddamn money I wasted in my life.
Oh, boy.
Okay? You look at what they have and the quality of it, it'll floor you. It'll literally floor you.
Yeah. Well, 2025 really does present a chance to reimagine ourselves for the better. And a great way to do that is with our closets, particularly for us older guys, James. This year, let's resolve to refresh our looks with quality pieces and stay on budget. The good news is we can, thanks to Quince. After checking them out, we think everyone needs Quince's Mongolian cashmere sweaters, starting at, if I ask you to guess how much a Mongolian cashmere sweater starts at, James, you want to take a wild guess?
$500.
$60. 60.
It's impossible.
I mean, there's nothing better for looking your best, even when the weather is cold, and it is cold now, and it may be colder in New Orleans than it is in Washington. And if you're prioritizing fitness this year, there's no better workout motivation than some new activewear. Their performance tees and tech shirts, this is for later in the year, are perfect for any movement, even if that's just getting up from the couch to turn up the heater while watching the football games. However, you choose to refresh yourself this year, all Quince pieces are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They do that by partnering directly with top factories, cutting out the cost of the middleman, and passing the savings on to you. We love that Quince only works with factories that make us safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices to make the premium fabrics and finishes that give Quince a luxury feel in every piece. Our favorites are the luxurious Mongolian cashmere cardigan sweaters, where James is shocked at what a low price they are for such a bargain, and the stretch wool dress pants. The materials feel amazing. They're the perfect combo for looking good and keeping warm. The style is perfect for getting things done on the hill, reading in a recliner, or making an impression at a dinner party. I used to try to do that. As comfortable as the fabrics are, we guarantee you'll be even more comfortable with the prices. So upgrade your closet this year without the upgraded price tag. Go to quince.com/warroom for 365-day returns, plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/warroom to get free shipping and a 365-day returns. Quince.com/war room. The link is in our show notes. All right, let's turn to something more upbeat, okay? You ready?
Sure, I'm ready.
Let's talk about football.
Okay.
I mean, it's been, we have seen some of the great NFL playoff games that we've seen in a long time. Almost every game has been terrific, and I suspect there'll be 2 more this weekend.
Why not? I mean, the storyline's going in there. I mean, the Jaden Daniels storyline is, I don't know if this is not one of the best stories in the history of professional football. Look what they won last year, 4 games? Yeah. 5 games, something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, this doesn't happen. I'm sure somebody can find out one other time it's happened, but somebody just went from 4 or 5 wins or whatever it was to playing the NFC Championship game. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's just an unbelievable story, didn't you?
Well, what else it's done is I came to Washington, and for 40 years I was a diehard Washington football fan, and then Dan Snyder wrecked it, and I turned on him, and now I'm back again. I think
everybody is back.
Thanks for them. But it's easy. And I'll tell you, to watch that game up in Buffalo, Lamar Jackson going against Josh Allen, probably the 2 best quarterbacks in football, it was a terrible conditions. This poor kid dropped a pass, which most people would have dropped in those conditions. But those 2 gutsy quarterbacks just took their teams up and down the field. It was a great game to watch. And as much as I liked Lamar Jackson, I cheered for Buffalo. I cheered for Tim Russert.
Well, first of all, the drop, but that guy's like an all-pro. And I had this one thought, and it's terrible that you think this, but I said, oh, God, thank God he's white. Because if he had been black, the MAGA people would have been all over him.
They would have.
Okay, that's just a human reaction that a human being, it's unfortunate that I got to be 80 years old, and it's got to be right now, and I still got to have that reaction. And the kid that dropped it is like one of the best tight ends in pro football. He's been in a number of Pro Bowls, but bad weather or not, he shouldn't have dropped that. It was a bad drop.
Well, and I will say, Lamar Jackson came to his defense and said it was more my fault than his.
Okay.
Of
course he did. That's what a good football player says. But I watched it 6 times. I don't know where you could throw it in the guy's belly button. Maybe
he was slipping. I mean, the grounds were terrible. He should have caught it. He would probably catch it 9 times out of 10, but the only one to be remembered is the 10.
I understand. I felt sorry. But thank God he was a good football player. Okay? Yeah. It was a pretty big drop.
Well, it was just, and I think the games this weekend are going to be just as good. I grew up a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I became a Commodore. I became a Washington football fan. I deserted them because of Dan Snyder. I'm back with them now. I hate to tell my sister-in-law, my brother and sister, but beat the Eagles.
I talk about the college playoff game. I watched the whole game. Of course, I was delighted. Your friend Lou Holtz was there pulling for Notre Dame the whole way.
Oh, that hurts.
But I say this. Notre Dame was a little better than I thought. They were not.
Boy, they came back.
Yeah, they were not. I mean, Ohio State, I think, is something else. I mean, if you get the talent they have, and they were clearly better than Notre Dame. Okay, this wasn't a fluke or anything, but I thought Notre Dame played, Marcus Freeman, it's all my fault. It really wasn't Marcus Freeman's fault. He just didn't, you didn't have as good athletes. I mean, it's just
no, he's a hell of a coach. He's gotten a great ride.
And they were
tremendous.
I'm not, I think Notre Dame's a pack of fucking whiners, but I got to say, that football team was better than I thought. They weren't the best team in the country.
I love Notre Dame because of Mark Shields. I think Freeman's a great coach. I think when you're down 31-7 to the best team in the country by far, and you come back and make it a game, at least in the last half of the fourth quarter, boy, that says a lot about the character of a football team.
I don't much care for them or their culture, but I got to say that this guy, they're better than I thought. I had Ohio State. I won the bet, but I thought I'd win it easier than I did. They actually gave me a heartburn at the end of the game.
I don't think this is the last you've heard of Notre Dame and Coach Freeman, although who knows what's going to happen.
Well, one of the interesting things I saw that ESPN had the top 10 most valuable player candidates in the National Football League, and 4 of the top 9 are LSU people. Now think about that. I don't think that's ever happened before.
James, you're probably the only person that's thinking about that, but that's good.
Well, again, being the MVP of the NFL is a kind of, I don't know, in my lifetime, it's been a pretty big deal.
Well, who's going to be the MVP of the NFL?
Probably Josh Allen. But remember, the votes come in after the regular season. It actually, statistically...
Well, the vote comes in, but it doesn't count. The playoffs don't count.
Right. That's what I mean. The playoffs don't count. They vote only on the regular season. Actually, Joe Burrow should win it, but his team didn't win. But
I think it'll be between Allen and Jackson, but I'll tell you that Eagles running back, Barkley, God, he was one hell of a running back.
People had, they had Burrow, number 3. They had Jaden Daniels, number 4. They had Justin Jefferson, number 8. And they had Jamar Chase, number 9.
Where was Barkley?
He was like 6. I mean, it was an ESPN thing. Barkley, actually, I think he should get it. I mean, that guy's unstoppable. And Jalen Hurts is just not that good. That's why Washington has a chance. I mean, Jaden Daniels significantly. I saw Jalen Hurts. He started at Alabama. And then he ended up at Oklahoma. When we beat Oklahoma in 2019, we could have beat them 100-0.
Well, I think that game's going to be won by turnovers, and that's the way most of them have been. And I don't know who's going to commit the most turnovers, but it's a hell of a contest.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jaden Daniels, probably one of the lowest interception ratios, not this season, but in a long time. He might throw 3 pick sixes Sunday, but he don't throw very many.
Well, I'm cheering for him, but I hate to go against that running back.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
He has a way of going, and just suddenly he'll pick up 2, he'll lose 1, he'll pick up 3, he'll pick up 2, and then suddenly he'll burst out for a 70-yard touchdown run.
Well, I just want to, I don't have I got a lot of friends that like the Eagles. I've got a ton of friends that like the Commanders. I just hope Jaden Daniels has a good game and it goes to overtime. I'd be happy to take that.
It'll be a good game. Okay, it'll take our mind off some other dark things that are happening.
Transform your home with 3-day blinds. Look, let me tell you, there's a lot of things that go into a good night's sleep, and the ability to control the light is everything in the world. Because let me tell you, particularly people our age, we like to sleep in the dark, but we don't like to go to bed in the dark because we want to see where we're stepping. And if you have something like this and you have this kind of control, you go to bed, it's pitch dark. You get up, you hit it, there's light. And, you're not doing it. And I think what's going to happen in terms of, I think people have started to recognize that sleep is such an essential function that there are going to be more people like these guys who have a great product. Because let me tell you, your ability to control that light and to sleep in a pitch black room is going to add hours a week to you having a good night's sleep.
And nothing is worse than blinding light at the crack of dawn. Getting out of bed to close the shades can be a real pain, particularly as you get older. You wonder, why is it already 2025 and my blinds still aren't, quote, smart, end quote, and automated? But we've got good news. There's a better way to buy blinds, shutters, shades, and drapery called 3-day blinds. They are the leading manufacturer of custom window treatments in the United States. And right now, if you use our URL, 3dayblinds.com/war room, they have a buy one, get one 50% off deal. Now, we can shop for almost anything at home. So shop for blinds at home, too. 3-day blinds Local, professionally trained design consultants averaging 10 plus years of experience in providing expert guidance on the right blinds for you, right in the comfort of your home. Just set up an appointment and you'll get a free, no obligation quote the same day. We love that expert team at 3 Day Blinds handles all the heavy lifting. Measuring and installing blinds can be a big challenge. So they design, measure, and install for you. That way you can sit back, relax, and leave it to the pros. Now, once we heard about them, we knew it was time to upgrade. Their blinds come in tons of great style, so it's an easy sell on the family. With 3 Day Blinds, we're excited to be getting better sleep and opening and closing our blinds from the comfort of our beds. Alexa, I slept great. Now let there be light. We know you'll like 3 Day Blinds as much as we do. They have thousands of options and even give you actual samples, so you won't have to do any guesswork. Don't wait. Transform your home with 3 Day Blinds today. Right now, get quality window treatments that fit your budget with 3 Day Blinds. Head to 3dayblinds.com/war room for their buy one, get one 50% off deal on custom blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery. For a free, no charge, no obligation consultation, just head to 3dayblinds.com/war room. One last time, that's buy one, get one 50% off when you head to the number 3, dayblinds.com/war room. Look for the link in our show notes. Hey, now for the outrage of the week. James, I don't pay much attention to the religious celebrants at political events, and there were so many greater concerns in Trump last week. But Franklin Graham, the evangelical preacher, merits an outrage or two. Standing on Monday a few feet away from President Biden at the indoor inaugural, he talked of the, quote, pretty dark, end quote, last 4 years, and motioning to President Trump declared, look what God has given us. You know, Mr. Graham, I really don't think the Almighty was involved in this election. It was 49.8% of the people, 312 electoral votes. Any more than the Almighty was involved in 2008 or 12 or 4 years ago when you didn't like the results. With Franklin Graham, there's a long history of religious and political bigotry. He's called Islam a, quote, evil and wicked religion, end quote, and falsely linked the Muslim Brotherhood to Barack Obama. There really was a difference between his political pitch and the Episcopalian bishop at the National Cathedral calling for mercy for the people who are scared. And as a citizen, Franklin Graham can believe and say whatever he wants. But when he puts on those religious garments, let's not pretend that he's anything but a partisan bigot.
Well, I'm so outraged about everything, I can't stop being outraged. As opposed to being outraged, my favorite moment of the week was there was a big MAGA function. In attendance was Lauren Boebert, who, in addition to everything else, is got to be one of the really dumb creatures ever. And she spent most of the function talking to a woman that she thought was Susie Wiles, but wasn't Susie Wiles. So, you know, every life needs some levity, even in these darkest times. And as long as we got Lauren Boebert around, we're guaranteed to have some levity.
Well, we could do one every week of, one of the clowns.
The dumbest thing we've seen this week, okay, or the funniest, because we should do it, because we're perpetually outraged, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm so tired of every conversation I have with everybody. Can you believe what that motherfucker did? That's generally the opening of any phone conversation.
But, James, there are going to be some hard choices, some really hard choices.
Sure, there is. And
we could have ties some week. Anyway, okay. And if you all out there see some outrages that we may not see, please send them in to us.
Get the sleep you need with Beam. It feels real good, and it tastes good when you drink it. It's very good tasting stuff. And it really does help you go get a good night's sleep. I mean, it's, part of the toolbox, but I think it's important. And it is, as a standalone, just as something that you drink at night that tastes good. It's very good, but it does help you get a good night's sleep, and that's a big deal. This is a great product. I'm glad they're part of our program.
Yeah, I am too. We've all had a lot of sleepless nights after the election and the inaugural, but it's time for all of us to get rested so we can take on the year ahead. Remember, good sleep is the foundation of our mental and physical health. And whether you're a podcaster, out in the elements, or in an office, it can make all the difference. That's why I am so excited to talk about Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend for sleep that is actually clinically shown to improve sleep and have you waking up refreshed. Everything changed when we found Dream. It's clinically shown to improve sleep, and let me tell you, it works. Now you can finally say goodbye to grogginess, start sleeping through the night, and wake up refreshed. Once you start getting better sleep, you realize that our energy and focus come back fast. You can now tackle your days instead of just getting through them. Other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess, but Dream contains a powerful, all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Looking ahead to 2025, we're determined to keep this momentum going, and making Dream a part of your nightly routine is going to make all the difference. If you're like us and struggled with sleep last year or even more recently, there's no better way to start this year than with consistent, restful nights. Dream will help you feel your best every single day. Don't wait. Get the ultimate sleep refresh for the new year. Try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/war room and use the code War Room at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/war room and use the code War Room for up to 40% off. The link is in our show notes. Now for the questions from our great listeners. James, I think, they're going to keep us on our toes this year, and that's good because they follow what's happening carefully and they ask insightful questions. So I love this segment. The first comes from Laura in Raleigh, North Carolina. How should we pick our battles under Trump?
A really good question, Laura. A really good question. And I think that, at least from my experience, is you want to build a narrative and you want to pick your issues that fit the narrative. All right. I think the most successful, and when I think of something being successful, I mean, you peel people off, you get people, who were for him not to be for him anymore. And that is this sense of betrayal that he really is about the billionaire class and doesn't give a shit about ordinary people. And so that's why I'm so high on all of the crazy shit that he did. And I admit it's all crazy. It's all, but the minimum wage thing, that's perfect. And the photo that we got on Inauguration Day with the whole billionaire class in there.
They're all together.
That's perfect. They're all together. I think that's the narrative that we want to push going forward. Now, understand, it's the hardest thing for people to realize in politics. And I got to tell you, even the phone conversation I had this morning, people say, but you got to say something about this. No, there's so much that he's putting out there, and you so ask the right question. And we so should pick issues where he is for the billionaire class and against the working class. And they're going to come, and they're going to keep coming, and we're not going to run out of them. And we got to keep reminding people about that. Because to choose to say one thing should be to choose not to say another thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good question.
Tony in Larkspur, California. I think Tony is an avid questioner, and they're always good. He asked, do you think we'll see any resistance from Trump's appointees like we did the last time? Tony, that's a very easy question. The answer is no. He has picked nothing but loyalists. There are no Jim Mattises. There are no Dan Coates in this administration. There are just yes people. And whether it's Kash Patel or at the FBI or Pam Bondi at Justice, or if this, I assume, Pete Hegseth will be confirmed for defense, they're going to give him whatever he wants. And the only resistance he could face, and I'm not sure he will, but he could face, will come from the military when he issues orders that are plainly illegal.
So, all right. Right, they're betting people. They're not going to make the same mistake. They're going to have 100% loyalists in every key position. Well, they can't do that because they're not that competent. And it just takes a couple to slip through. But I'm confident that a couple will slip through and will leak and tell what's going on. Now, if you look at what happened in the Justice Department, according to the news stories, and I'm going to talk to people that know something about the Justice Department, there are people leaving there left and right. I mean, I don't know how many talented career people are going to be leaving positions in the Justice Department. You remember, you got a lot of in the Defense Department, in the State Department, in the Treasury. I mean, we got to be on the lookout because there could be some really significant brain drain here. I mean, really significant brain drain. And it's supposed to have brain drain in the FDA, brain drain in the agricultural inspectors, customs inspectors, and you're going to see a lot of. We're just starting here. And, hopefully, to make 2,000 of these non-civil service appointments, man, if we could get 2 or 3 that just became so appalled with what they see or weren't properly vetted by them, that could start something. And I think we'll get them.
Mary in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, James, says Trump is actually a lame duck. Should Democrats factor this into their strategy?
Not really. The Democratic strategy is going to be complete when 2028 would have should have been in 2024. The future starts now. Okay, we've been through all of this. Let's move. Let's go ahead. Let's forge a new and different kind of future. That's going to be the Democratic message. And I keep coming back to the thing that I fundamentally believe the most, and which fundamentally keeps me optimistic, is just the breathtaking level of talent that exists in a Democratic Party today. It's so overwhelming, it's so manifest, and I hope that we get these people out. I hope we have a 26 kind of midterm where we're talking about it, because right now Trump's coming in and they're going to tire him so fast. They're going to tire of the whole system. They're going to lump everything together. And we need to get people that are out there that take every kind of appearance that they're asked to do, that do it with joie de vivre and a lust for talking about the future and getting this country moving, we're in a place that we all want it to be. I mean, messaging ain't going to be hard, and the messages are all going to be good. I cannot wait.
Okay, and we're just starting, too. Yeah. Nick in Billings, Montana, says, do any potential vacancies created by Trump appointments in the House or Senate have any chance to be filled by Democrats? Or are these just fundraising emails that suggest it's predatory? In the House, not so much. I haven't looked carefully, but that Stefanik district in New York and the 2 Florida districts, I think, are pretty red. Maybe a good candidate. It could be an upset, but it doesn't look that promising, I think. Senate's different. Of course, those seats aren't up to 2026. If Sherrod Brown runs in Ohio, and I hope he does, I think in 2026 is a good Democratic year. They have also a potentially strong gubernatorial candidate, a woman who is actually Mike DeWine's healthcare person, very popular. I think they could pick up that seat. And I think in Florida, if they get a decent candidate, which the Florida Democratic Party, I thought, what was her name? Val Demings was the only good statewide candidate they've had in a while, James. If they can get another Val Demings, maybe. So Senate, perhaps, we'll see 2 years from now. House, not so much.
You remember the movie, The Graduate, Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, plastics.
And the classic thing where the guy says, plastics.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one word, recruitment. Okay. If Hakeem is going to be considered a great Democratic leader, and there's certainly every reason to believe that he could be, his biggest job right now, or Schumer's biggest job, is recruitment. Because that is something, and that's where the people that are all wrong, that says this is all reduced to 7 statistics, the Parson lean, the inflation, the real wage growth, the this, to that. Good candidates do much better than bad candidates. And if we get really good candidates who are really good on their feet, then we can do really well. And, one of the things I keep coming back to, but it's not appreciated enough, Alyssa Slotkin, Tammy Baldwin, Jackie Rosen, Ruben Gallego, all carried states that Trump carried. And, but for a few things, Bobby Casey would have been in the same place in Pennsylvania, because our Senate candidates were infinitely better candidates than our presidential candidate. And don't ever forget in any analysis. And, you're going to know early to see if we can recruit good people, because they'll think the atmosphere's going to be pretty favorable to them. And let's see how their recruiting goes. But I'm a big, big believer in recruiting. I mean, you get these 5-star people out of high school, you're going to win more games. It's a little bit like college athletics and politics have something in common. It's a lot about recruiting.
No, I agree. And for Chuck Schumer, and I guess it's Kirsten Gillibrand, who's the head of the campaign committee in the Senate now, Roy Cooper, North Carolina, has got to be a top target. I mean, persuade Governor Cooper, who's been a great governor, would be an incredibly strong candidate, and find someone, just get a good candidate in Florida. If you get a good candidate, maybe you'd have a shot.
Maine is a place that you really got to push it, because and the governor there, she's pretty good. I like her. She's kind of crusty. She's won twice, and the last Democrat did that in Maine is few and far between. But I mean, we really got to get a good, really good candidate in Maine. I guess there's Alaska coming up now. I mean, it's always kind of screwed up if she runs an independent.
I wouldn't
like
count
that.
on Alaska. I think.
I'm just.
Yeah.
That's what you can't.
I'll tell you what comes up. Don't laugh. Kentucky, a good, Mitch McConnell stepping down. I
don't think Andy's going to run.
What?
And I don't think Bashir wants to run. I didn't talk to him, but for him to run for the Senate in Kentucky in 2026, the race gets nationalized. And yes, he could win the governorship by 5, but if it's going to be really hard, the place that I keep coming back to, and apparently we have a really good Senate candidate in Mississippi. I'm told, I don't know, but he's an African American, he's black, but really, really good candidate. Cindy Hyde-Smith is much weaker than Roger Wicker. And, if it was a big, we kind of started 47.5. All right, we don't start way in the back of the pack. And, if you recruit him, you think you could have a good year, which we very well might. Let's see what happens in this Virginia governor's race. The field we have in New Jersey is so goddamn strong. It's just, you can't even believe the quality of candidates that we got there. So I think we got a lot that can go right for us here.
Okay, James, let me ask you this. Clay Higgins beats Bill Cassidy in a primary in Louisiana. Democrats have anybody who could take on that crazy?
Probably John Bell, if you had to get him to run. And it had to be Clay Higgins. it couldn't. It's not going to be Cassidy. That's not going to happen. And different people running. And Clay Higgins hadn't said one way or another. But if you got Clay Higgins and you got John Bell to run against him, that would sort of stimulate my interest somewhat.
Yeah.
But it really going to take, Louisiana takes a tougher inside straight than Mississippi does.
Well, that's how they got the governorship, right?
In Mississippi, you're trying to draw to a flush. In Louisiana, you're trying to draw to a state.
Right. Brandon in Eugene, Oregon, notes, James, that you had mentioned a Democratic midterm convention in the summer of 2026. What are the chances of that happening? And should the next DNC chair push it?
I think good. I think it's one of these things that's too evident. I think the new chair, whoever it will be, apparently it's going to be a he. Here's a quarter call somebody gives a shit. But it will probably be a he. It'll probably be a white he. One of the other strengths that the Democrats have that is just sort of, no one gives a shit anymore what gender you are or what race you are or anything else. Who can win the fucking election?
Yeah.
All right. What we found out, don't go back to Harris, is having a female and having a black on the ticket, to best as I can discern, didn't do us any good. I mean, I don't think it doesn't. But just get the strongest, and I think they'll want to. The one thing I keep hearing, they want to have this midterm convention, and they want to go, and they should do this, is to make sure that their consultants are not cross-conflicted and lobbyists at the same time. And that the next chair can do those two things and can put on a good convention. But they could do it in Chicago, which is, you'd have to find some place you would want to do it in New Orleans in the middle of the summer.
I wouldn't mind doing it in Des Moines.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's that big thing, but or Detroit.
Yeah.
But it's just a place that would be a place that'd be easy to get to. I'm a big believer that a non-stop will get you more people and more interest.
Mine's harder for that.
Anywhere. Yeah. But Minneapolis. Yeah.
James, let me ask you this. Any prediction on the next DNC chair?
Yeah, Ken Martin says he has 200 votes, and I don't know how many you need, but and I'm not that into it or plugged into it at all, but it seems like he's getting the most conversation. Martin O'Malley he's working hard. Ben Wickler's, one of our favorite party chairs anywhere in the country. So I think it's gonna be okay.
There's no bad candidate, but I just think
no bad.
I think Ben Wickler is the
right. I don't.
What he's done in Wisconsin,
nor do I choose to care to know much about DNC internal politics. But let's see. I think
Jason in Los Angeles asks, is Musk or Vance the biggest player in the administration? Oh, short-term Musk, no question. And the question is, does Musk last, or does Trump get tired of Musk? He's also going to get tired of all Musk money and all of his social media presence. But as long as Musk is there, he's more important than Vance.
I think Musk created Vance. Hmm. I think that's what it all comes back to. I think
his partner Peter Thiel.
Right? Yeah. So I think if Musk spent $270 million and Trump doesn't make 4 years, which if you look at him, you got to consider as a real possibility, then he owns Vance. It's a pretty cheap price.
Yeah.
But I don't think Vance and Musk have much to argue about.
Yeah. Hey, James, our final question is from Pete in Raleigh, North Carolina. We're big in the Tar Heel State this week, who notes Winston Churchill and FDR rallied the Allies. They didn't just whine, and we've heard all the outrages. Give us some encouragement. What's the good news of the week?
The good news of the week is the good news going forward, and that is in North Carolina, you got one of the most remarkably talented and successful Democrats in Roy Cooper. Okay, just write him postcards saying, Governor, the country needs you, North Carolina needs you, please run for the Senate. And I keep coming back to the good news is we got a lot of talent. Hopefully, and we get good recruitment and, you know, we get our sea legs a bit. But right now, the image of the party is really bad. It's really bad. And it you know, I think that we need to get away from talking points, get away from selective places that we want to take our message and go out and carry forth and preach the gospel and preach it everywhere you can.
Man, I'll tell you, Pastor Carville, preach,
That's
baby,
it.
preach.
I believe that there's a lot of unrealized, underutilized talent in this party, and I don't see anything holding it back right now.
Okay, Pete, we've given it to you, and you can do your bit by encouraging Governor Cooper to run in 2026.
Absolutely. You got one of the all-time greats right there in your home state.
I think he's won, I may be wrong, I think he's won 7 statewide offices. It's either 6 or 7. That's pretty intense.
Well, we wouldn't pay attention to that. Does he make us feel superior to other people? Because,
yeah. You know. Okay, great show, guys. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. As always, send your questions for us by email to politicswarroom@gmail.com or tweet them for next week's show at Politicon. Following this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you check out the links to our sponsors, Quince, 3-Day Blinds, and Beam in our episode show notes. We thank you for supporting it because when you do, it helps make this podcast happen. Now, to keep up with us, subscribe to Politics War Room on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And check out our Substack at politicswarroom.com. James and I are constantly adding new content. Go take a look. You can also find other shows you might enjoy in the Politicon YouTube channel or when you search Politicon on your favorite podcast sites. And remember, please rate the show with a 5-star review. We'll be back next week with another show as we continue our War Room plan.